Please come up on stage, Jesper. And I know that you are also running not a secret project, but an ongoing project, never-ending project, where you are trying to create what you call intrinsic motivation for your 3 kids to clean their rooms at home, right?
Yes, I am.
And how is that going?
It's a work in progress, not doing too well.
I know that you're going to start doing the first intro, and then you will be joined on stage by your colleague Carla as well.
Yes, so Carla will come on later. Well, thank you so much. It's
Jesper Ek, everybody.
All right.
Give him a hand.
Thanks so much. I feel like the penguin here after Lucen's nice movie, so I will try not to stumble. But as you heard, I come from sort of the big company. I am, I think, the only representatives from the big companies, Roche, where we are sort of been in diabetes care for 30 years or even more, that's, I guess, why I want to start with this old quote. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone that change is happening and it goes quickly. But I think the words of Charles Darwin, which actually was a long time ago, who said this, and I think focus on the last part, who most adaptable to change. And I think change is happening. We've heard that now for the 2 keynote speakers before me. They're all talked about change and how digital can come in and really change the way we think about healthcare. Now, I said I come from a big company, and I think it's pretty important to bring out Forbes 1000 list. I don't know if you're familiar with this list, but they do every 10 years, they look at the 1,000 largest companies in the world. And then they actually track what happens to those 1,000 largest companies in the world over the next 10 years. And it turns out it's pretty scary if you come from a big company, because it turns out from 2003 to 2013, 70% of the big companies actually disappeared. I think that speaks a little bit to the massive change that's ongoing in society today. And of course, as a company, a big company, we really want to think about this, and we have. We've actually created, we want to stay in this business longer. We don't want to be one of those 70% that actually won't make it into 2025. And therefore, we've created an outside-in vision where we have focused very much on the patient. And this is the talk today, talks about patient empowerment. And what you see here is our vision. So this is Roche vision. If you are living with a chronic disease, your life is going to be restricted. It's sort of like before you had the chronic disease, you could walk like nothing. You didn't even think about it. But once you get that disease, and especially now we're talking about diabetes, your life will change forever. And it's sort of like now you're walking on a fence. And anyone, can you feel that sensation when you're up on that fence? What happens to the speed of your walking? Is it going faster on that fence or less fast compared to before? Well, less fast. So what we want to become as a company is to be that hand. And that's our vision. We want to ensure that, we can't cure the disease, and that's not our aim. But as long as there is something called diabetes out there, we're going to do everything we can to enable for people with diabetes to lead healthier and live longer lives. And we want to become that hand. And I want you to bring that with you, especially when you, as startups, think about cool ideas. Roche is here, and we have made a commitment to be relevant also for the coming 10 years and continue to help people with diabetes lead healthier and live longer lives. I just want to bring back a little bit some of the facts, because it's a sad truth. We've been in the business for a long time, and as you can see, only 6% of the people with diabetes reach a decent clinical target. 6%. I mean, that's terrible if you think about it. Now, I think we are now in the changing environment we're in. There's a good chance that hopefully in the coming 10 years, this will change for the better. But this is the truth right now. And another thing that's happening is the cost of treating people is exploding. So we're spending more money, but only 6% can reach a clinical target. That's something to think about and reflect about, even in days like this when we talk about new cool stuff. And chronic disease. Now, this I actually got from another cool company called Diabetes Tools. So they gave me this slide. But if you look here, this is Swedish data. The TLV, which is the Clinical Medical Association here in Sweden, they estimate that about 80 to 85% of the cost of healthcare is actually associated to to chronic disease. Now, if you take then the McKinsey report from 2012, you can see they estimate that if we can become better at helping people who has a chronic disease to stay on treatment, to change their behaviors, we could actually reduce that cost to close to 70%. So everyone in this room today, you have an important task. Create digital new solution that works, that helps people to actually stay on course and change their behaviors. And if we do that, we will actually reduce the cost for healthcare. So what we're doing, and I think everyone in this room is familiar with BJ Fogg and this idea, but in the old times, we worked a lot with motivation. So if you want to have a behavioral change, you motivate people. And of course, if you have a chronic disease, you're really motivated the minute you get the chronic disease. You're really motivated. And that's where we've been focusing everything, all of our attentions. But we've realized, and I think here's where the digital solutions comes in, it's not so much the motivation, because that actually drops as time goes by. And that's why it's so hard to sustain behavioral change. But it's more about being there and helping people to actually make decisions right there, right now, over a long period of time. And that's on the other axis, that's the ability. And what we want to help now is to take all the knowledge we have at Roche in terms of the motivational part, but also couple that with all the cool stuff that Lucent and others talked about today, about the ability side, so that we cross the trigger line early and that we help people to stay on the other side of that trigger line, because that's how you enable changing behaviors. So now I would like to introduce Carla. So Roche is, we are now focusing on this, and Carla works in the eminence side of Roche, and she is sort of doing some of the digital things that we are currently working on. So Carla, I pass over to you.
Good morning, you all. Well, as Jesper has been said, we need to enable behavioral change. But in order to do that, we also need to change how healthcare is being delivered. And right now, we all are using this device that connects us to the world. And that's what patients are expecting from us. They don't want to engage to the treatment. They want the treatment to adapt to their lives, and we have to provide them with innovative solutions that can help them to really change their relationship with their diabetes. So in Spain, we have been working for a year now, more or less, with this online educational platform with which the doctors can prescribe specific models to the patients adapted to their needs. This way, they can also track their progress, making quizzes before and after they take the model. And this enables patients to take more educated decisions. And this is important because we are giving voice to the patients in order to also have a say in their treatment and empowering them to take control over their diabetes. And why is so important this making decisions for them? That's because they have to make tons of them every single day. But not only the patients, also their caregivers and the doctors. And we need to provide solutions that help them and support them in this decision making. They have to collect tons of data. And this data needs to be analyzed and to be actionable. So if we can show it in a nicer way, they can take faster and more accurate therapeutic decisions. Moreover, we are working on pattern detection. Based in algorithms, we can predict possible complications, and we can adjust the treatment to everyday lives. Imagine that every single weekend, Jesper, who has diabetes, goes to a football match with his friends, and then gets a couple of beers. His diabetes is not going to look really well this weekend. If he does it every single weekend, his doctor can really say in this kind of graphics that something is happening and adjust his treatment to his life so he can keep on going to his football match and control his diabetes. And that's why we are working also with startups. We are collaborating with My Sugar right now in a gamification for engagement that is a logbook, because patients need to track their data continuously. And that's boring, and that's tedious. So they have created a little monster that helps them and reminds them about this data collection and makes it a little bit easier as it is fun. Because we have to bear in mind that we are not only transforming digital health, we are also transforming the system. And we need to work with all agents, old and new, including patients, and also with universities. We are now collaborating with Bern University in developing an app that automatically finds out how many carbohydrates are in a meal and determines the exact insulin doses that is needed for that meal. This is how we are providing relief. We are giving them the tools to make things easier, so they don't have to think so much about their diabetes routines, but they can really enjoy their lives. And that's what personalized care is about. We are including there not only therapy, but also data collection, pattern recognition, education, communication with patients. So they become more empowered, they take control, they really manage their diabetes. And they can change the equation. Because whenever they are motivated, as Jesper said, they really get much better outcomes, clinical outcomes. And that results in less complications in the long term. So again, that results in better outcomes for optimizing resources. We need our system to be sustainable. And with the actual system, it's not going to happen. We are, as our colleagues said, we are getting older, we are getting sick, and we are living much longer without these resources to sustain the system. So we need to provide these innovative solutions in order to become a partner to the system and the hand for the patient.
So, thank you, Carla. That was just a snapshot of the things that we are currently working on. And again, what I want you to remember is Roche is here for the future. We want to be part, making a true difference and creating true relief for patients. And as you can see, the patient is basically in the future on their own. It's going to be like that. I mean, do you know the word for hospital in Swedish? Anyone know Swedish here? It's actually sick house. And I think that's sad. I mean, I have a vision when I have my grandkids on my lap that they're going to ask me, Dad, was it really true that you had a house for sick people? And I think we can all make this, we can change this. And I think digital solutions is going to be key, enabling patients to take empowerment of their own life so that they can walk basically on their own. But of course, we as companies, we need to be there to help them when they need help and not control them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesper.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll go straight to the cage because I know that this is something that is close to heart. Questions, comments, Cage?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your presentation. We love hearing about diabetes innovation and diabetes treatment. One thing, I'd like to kind of take it to a serious note for a minute because an article said that Roche is going to be the #1 in prescription drug sales by 2022. And one of the things that we're seeing with the rise in EpiPen rates, what we're seeing with Monsanto and Bayer merging, is really the need for ethics in pharmaceutical industries. And I'd like you to just address that for a little bit and where that's going.
Well, so I come from the small cousin in the Roche group, which is diabetes care. I cannot comment really on the pharma side and what's going on there. So I have to pass that question. But in terms of diabetes care, we are really committed making a difference for patients. And that's what, I'm here talking about diabetes care and what we can do for them.
That was actually a really good question because I have something about that as well. When you're looking at the current development, you can see that a lot of pharmaceutical companies are focusing on a broader scale of products that are available for people with diabetes. And you also mentioned that according to the paper that you showed in the beginning of your presentation, the majority of the companies that are in the Fortune 1000 will not survive the upcoming years or will disappear in the upcoming years. What if, in an ideal situation, we would find a cure for diabetes type 1 and type 2 and Roche would be in severe danger because of that? How can a company be flexible enough to survive something like that? Because eventually, if we're looking at your biggest competitor, Novo Nordisk, they are investing a lot of money in finding a cure for diabetes. How are you tackling that as a company?
Well, I would say Novo Nordisk is not our competitor. Again, we share the same vision to enable people with diabetes to live healthy lives. And in that sense, we are not in the business of curing diabetes. We're in the business of, as long as there is diabetes, we're going to be there to help them through solutions like, what we have today is meters and pumps. We also have some digital solutions. We are doing what we can to be that hand. Novo is focusing on curing. And I think both of our companies needs to be in this market to make a difference. So we don't see them as competitors. We see them as partners, and we are genuine helping people with diabetes lead healthier lives, and that's our vision, and we stay focused on that.
And I want to comment also on this because as we presented before, diabetes is a chronic condition. It could probably in the future be cured, but we are talking about that 90% of the new cases are type 2, and that's related to the lifestyle of people. And we are working really hard into behavioral change with education, with prevention, and also enabling people to change their behavior towards healthier lives. And that's also something that we need to have in mind, because people is not that healthy, and there are trends about being healthier and going to the gym, but most of the population is sedentary. They work too many hours in an office. They are not eating healthy, and we need to also to be there to prevent complications, to predict where is going to be the problem, because that's what we are doing with our solutions. Not only helping them to live healthier lives, but also to predict how this can be in the long term.
And I want to come back to the intro. I mean, I know I have 3 kids, and just to have them clean the rooms, it's really hard to change their behaviors. So, and just a small example that you brought up, but we are here to help people change their behaviors over time. That's our mission.
Do you find it difficult to focus on a group that is so innovative as a diabetic patient?
No, I love that. It's wonderful. And I also love the fact that there's so many cool stuff happening right now. Again, the change we see today, the technology is in this, we heard that in the morning, we're in this massive sort of exponential growth. and that actually allows for new things to happen. New things in a way that, you know, what we today think is true is not going to be true in just a year from now. And that's the awesome part.
Can I just jump in there with a comment as well? I mean, I've been following the now three talks here this morning, and just with a perspective from my side of the table, which is, you know, innovation and seeing development of things, and some comments that I've seen so far. And one thing that comes to mind is an interview with what we call the founder of internet, the English guy that, you know, wrote the first HTML code, and he got the answer. You know, when did the internet actually sort of happen? You know, which date did it sort of break through? And he was like, sort of, well, it wasn't, you know, that we had went from one server to 100,000 servers. It was like sort of, we had one server, and then we had two servers, and then, you know, and then suddenly somebody said, oh yeah, I found this information on the internet. And then you go, oh, it's here. And we had this comment this morning as well, you know, when it's here, we just realize that it's happened. And that's what's happening here as well, with an analogy to the diabetes part, which is, in a sense, a terrible thing, because I know in the US, where I spent the last year, and I'm looking into diabetes, because there were a couple of startups that I coached that were working with that. I mean, we have 90 million diagnosed pre-diabetes going into diabetes diagnosed now, another 2 million per year. India is exploding, China is exploding. We have that whole thing. But I mean, at the same time, a lot of things are happening on the technology side. And if we compare it to the autonomous driving, I had the privilege of interviewing Danny Lange, who is the head of machine learning at Uber yesterday over phone. And he said, you know, and we were talking about it, and he said, you know, well, you know, our grandkids, they'll be saying, what do you mean you drove yourself? Are you mad? Thousands of people must have died on the roads every day. Yeah. And yeah, they sort of did.
They do.
But, you know, and the same thing here, will come to a future when we will be having, hopefully, helped so much with tech and with everything, that we'll get to a future where the symptoms and what we actually experience will be lessened. Another comment, sorry for going on about this, but another comment on the innovation side when it comes to this is as well, you know, the whole, what do we have for time? Is he waving things at me here? Yeah, we're all closing up here now. Any more questions from the cage before we end up?
No, not any questions, but absolutely we applaud any time that drugs are replaced by behavior change and technology, so keep on doing what you're doing, and I think the rest of the pharma industry should follow you in that.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.